Hi, I'm Desiree. I'm from the Nerd Element, and I post there as Dezbot. I'm a blogger on the site. And you are?
I'm Joshua Werner. I'm the CCO of Oxide Media, which is the parent company of the publisher SourcePoint Press, and I'm also the writer of the Winchester Mystery House comic book series.
So, what about the Winchester Mystery House attracted you to do this story?
So I have been aware of the house and some of its history and lore for a long time. It's popped up in a lot of those most haunted places in America style books. And one of the things that interested me the most is how influential it's been to fiction over time. That Stephen King's Rose Red was largely based on this. That Disney's Haunted Mansion was based on this. That Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House was based on this. And the more I learned about the history behind it, the more intrigued I became and wanted to know how many others are aware of this, the history behind it and the legend, how many others want to know more, how many people are completely new and never heard of the house. And an opportunity came up to have a meeting with the licensors, and basically there was a conversation being had of like, what kind of story do you want to continue putting forth to your the people you want to teach about this? The movie attracted a lot of new eyes to it, and they felt like they could go deeper. There was more to say on the subject, and I agreed wholeheartedly. There's so much more to go, beyond what the film kind of scratched the surface. And we agreed that a comic book series was the perfect way to do that. And ever since, it's been an absolute privilege to kind of partner with them and be able to take the lead on being a face for this story for them. And I'm so glad that it was me who was able to do it, because it's something I'm really passionate about and I care a lot about.
Have you been there? How many times have you been there, I should ask?
This is very surprising to most. I've never actually been there. I'm going to finally get to be there very soon. We're actually holding a private press event that's kind of unannounced, so I can't really talk about it yet. But we're going to be there on Friday the 13th in August to unveil another surprise product that is not the comic book series. So so there's even more cool stuff happening behind the scenes right now, and I'm very, very excited for that, because after we do this event with the press and we have a bunch of fun and we unveil this new product and we talk, the whole group is going on a group tour of the mansion in the dark with flashlights. I'm just giddy for it. I'm so excited. I've done the virtual walkthrough tour, I don't know, maybe 20 times. And I've never done it guided. I've always decided which way I wanted to go myself.
Right.
And I still, having done it in a very controlled environment on my own computer, have never been able to make it all the way through without getting lost. Still to this day.
When I was younger, we used to go up the freeway all the time to visit family up north. And we'd pass the signs, Winchester Mystery House, this many miles, visit the Winchester Mystery House. And I was terrified of it as a kid, because I'd heard all these stories about the door to nowhere and the pit in the middle of the room. And I was like, how can you go and see this room and not fall in and die? So, could you explain a little bit to whoever's watching who Sarah Winchester was and what the house is?
Absolutely. So Sarah Lockwood Pardee Winchester, she was the wife of William Winchester, who was, after his father passed away, the 50% owner of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, which was absolutely revolutionary for guns. The early model that it was based on is often thought as the gun that kind of turned the tide during the Civil War. A lot of soldiers were actually investing their own money into buying one of these guns because it kept them alive longer. And that gun went on to be used for all sorts of pretty horrendous purposes, including expanding westward across the nation. So a lot of the Native American tribes that were killed by that expansion were killed by that gun. And when William passed away, the heir became. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Sorry. Still in a functioning office over here. So when William passed away, Sarah became that heir and to that kind of just massive fortune. And during this time, she was going through a terrible depression. She had already lost her daughter, and now she had lost her husband at an early age to tuberculosis. And she was a very progressive, intelligent, highly educated woman. And what she would do with this fortune was kind of everyone's, mystery, their guess. Nobody knew. And she traveled for a while. She ended up traveling around Europe. And there's no documentation, not a whole lot of letters, not a whole lot of people really know what it was she was doing during that time. But then when she came back, she decided to move west to California and start building this house. And when she started building the house, she didn't stop. It became a decades-long construction project that just continued to grow and grow and grow into this wild labyrinth that started becoming stranger and stranger and no longer really made functional sense, especially since not very many people lived in the house. Why was it necessary? Why was it needed? And then a lot of the lore started to kind of fill in some of those questions of who is this mysterious woman who's so private? Why is she doing this? Why is she building this house? Why is there never ending hammering day and night, 7 days a week for years? And the legend goes that she saw a medium in Boston that told her that she was cursed. And that was why she lost her daughter. That was why she lost her husband. And the curse was the curse of the deaths that were on her hands, essentially, for the Winchester rifles. So they call this the house that spirits built. It is thought to be a house that was meant to be built by and for all of these lost souls that were killed by these rifles. And whether or not she was driven by fear or of dying, of the curse catching up to her if she stopped building, is really up for debates and speculation, as none of this is proven, of course. And me personally, I'm infatuated with this lore, and I think this concept is phenomenal, and I'm really intrigued by it. And I love what we have been told so far through a lot of popular fiction. But I do think there's something more to it than that. I think it goes a lot deeper. I think this house has its roots in some very intentional designs, even though we don't see floor plans, and we know that Sarah was communicating every single room's design, mostly verbally, to the foreman, who would then give it to the crew. And it was often thought and said that she would get this information after going to the seance room every night. I think that it's not as haphazard as people might think it is. I think there's a lot of symbolism hidden throughout this house. And it's something that the comic book series touches on a little bit too. It pushes forth other ideas in addition to supernatural elements in the story as to what was going through her mind, or what at least people thought was going through her mind during this time while she was building.
It's really interesting that all that background that you're giving, because, growing up in California, we always heard that she kept building because she felt that if she ever stopped building the house, she would die.
Right.
Which was one of the part of the lore that goes around about the Winchester Mystery House. In your research, you mentioned in the Comic-Con video you did that you got to read some of her letters.
There were some excerpts from letters that were passed between her and her sister Isabel. I can't drawing a blank on any specifics, but a lot of what I gleaned from that was fairly tame. It definitely portrayed her as just a very sensible, fairly normal person. One of the things that I've really gleaned from a lot of the actual information I've been able to get my hands on is that she was in no way crazy, which is something that was kind of touted around for a century. This idea that she was a crazy person that was doing this because of a haunting that was just driving her mad. And while I do think that she was firm, passionate, knew what she wanted, she was not crazy, and she was extremely generous. And a lot of what she was doing was giving the community really good paying jobs for a really long time. She was using her fortune in a way that didn't harm anyone else. It didn't build an empire of businesses, but it did a lot for the people in the surrounding area and for San Jose. And what she was doing with her money outside of building this house was very, very private and secretive, but there's a lot of documentation, not documentation proving it, but a lot of documentation in writing survived to today of people talking about her, how generous she was with her money, that she would, while you were not in a position to be able to approach, just go to the house and ask for a handout, she definitely gave a lot of donations to causes that she believed in, including women's rights. Her sister Isabel was really big on that as well. And she really supported a lot of organizations in the area, especially orphanages. She felt really strongly that orphanages needed support, that no child should be without a home. The orchards were largely used to feed orphans. They would harvest and ship it out to all the orphanages. And those are things that I try to kind of pepper throughout the story to really give everyone a good idea of who she really was. She was fairly no nonsense, but she had great, strong personal relationships with a very few number of people. But with those people, she was very warm. And I love showing that side of her. And I essentially want her to be the most lovable badass who you are a little bit intimidated by and don't really know what to expect from. So like keeping that element of mystery about her in the comic is of importance to me, because I never want to be the person who speaks for Sarah. I don't think anyone should. So while her actions that she took they play out, her reasons for them are presented to you through other ways, not through her personal internal monologues, not through her dialogues with other people. Her reasoning is offered up to the reader as something they can kind of take or leave in multiple ways, such as a lot of the supernatural elements in the story. While it is a supernatural, fictitious story, a lot of those theories about the curse and everything, they come from gossip amongst the crew, the workers. A lot of the theories about Freemason symbols throughout the house are presented by her longtime attorney and confidants in a conversation in the story. Like I give them up as other people's viewpoints, because really that's all we have to work with to this day. And I don't think that makes it any less intriguing or exciting to kind of stumble upon. I think it just opens a door for the reader to want to do more research and kind of come to their own conclusions.
If you can tell us without spoiling things that people don't know, well, I guess it would be a spoiler. Like, what was the most surprising thing that you discovered about Sarah during your research?
Wow, most surprising thing. This is an excellent question. Surprisingly, not one I've been asked yet. I was there's a few just kind of meaningless details about her that I thought were really interesting. She was extremely small, 4'11".
Wow.
And that really does explain some of the rooms in the house are very small. If you're tall, you're going to want to duck your head. And that's because they're Sarah-sized. There was, she had, her personal relationships were really interesting to me. One of the only people in the world she trusted was her niece. I always thought that was really interesting tidbit. And her niece came to live with her, and her sister, which would be her niece's mother, did not. I always thought that was really interesting. And when her niece moved out, she got a dog. and the dog became her bestie. And I'm always interested to kind of find out more and more. I continue to uncover little tiny things that she was doing for her workers that I didn't really know about. That the population of workers were really diverse, that she was giving second chances to people who might otherwise have a difficult time getting a job, or to minorities, to freed slaves, second generation. There's just never ending abundance of her generosity and her care for people, which continues to surprise me because of the air that was about her. A lot of people, she was, if you were someone who didn't agree with her plans or wanted to go against them, you'd be fired and you wouldn't be able to work on the estate. She was super private. She wouldn't allow press anywhere near. Even when distant family members would come to visit, she would not let them use the front door and not let them through the house. And really, she would continue to remain private about that. She would have a separate entrance, but goes right to a meeting room where she can have these conversations with people without letting them in. And those kind of little, they don't sound like much, but when you look at it in the big picture, they're all shocking and surprising to me, because they're all clues about what, that leads you to wondering what she was so private about. What was it that she wanted to hide from the world? And one tidbit, it is a shocker. I would normally not say this because I feel it is something that comes up in the comments, and I feel like it is a bit of a spoiler, but it is something that people can find on their own already. So I'll let this one slip in this interview. One of the most shocking things to me is for years and years and years, there was a legend about her biggest treasure being hidden somewhere inside the house. And to this day, we continue to uncover new rooms in the house. There's still things that are in there that we didn't know about, and we continue to uncover. And one of the things that was uncovered was a hidden room. And it happened during a reconstruction of where they had to actually take down part of a wall to put up a new one. And in doing so, they discovered a hidden room. Inside of this room was a safe. And when they were able to open the safe, inside of that safe was another safe. And at this point, I mean, this was huge, because this is the long lost treasure that people have been gossiping about, and that no one knew if it was real. Did she really hide an entire room just for this treasure? And when they opened up that smaller safe, what they found inside was one item and no money. And it was a lock of her daughter's hair. And
oh, wow.
That to me is just the best answer to this long question about this hidden treasure. I cannot think of a more impactful discovery than finding that, especially since someone had to know at some point that what that was. And then that there must have been workers who sealed that room off. And it was likely a very small private group of very trusted individuals, so that none of the other workers would know about it, so that the word wouldn't spread about this treasure. And even those ones probably got the word out through gossip eventually. And that's how we came to this conclusion that there's a hidden treasure, but no clue what it was. And to have that discovery so many years later after her death just tells me that there's so much more in this house we still don't know about. And there's so many more surprises and shocking revelations to come.
Yeah. And, it's technically, I guess, I mean, like you said, it's a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler because we don't know how you're going to treat it in the story. So
that people, when they get to that point of the story, I really, really hope that they love the way that I went about it, because I try to do it with all the heart and emotion that she must have been feeling when it happened, and it has a little bit of that kind of reveal impact as well. But such a treat to be involved in something like this and have to continue to learn more and more. That just makes me love Sarah and this house more every day.
When does the first volume come out?
So issue 1 of the first 3-issue miniseries comes out in October. 27th. It's the very last Wednesday of the month. So right around Halloween time. And then the second issue will take place 10 years later. The first issue is like year one of the house. And then it jumps forward in time 10 years in the heyday of the construction. And that comes out the last Wednesday of November. And then the third issue, which is kind of like a season finale, which takes place a couple weeks later after issue 2, will be in stores the last Wednesday of December. And then if everyone loves it and it goes well and it sells well, we will be returning for a volume 2 in the following year. I don't have dates for that yet, but I do have a lot of the storyline plotted out, which I'm very, very excited. So I really hope people support it because there's so much more to tell beyond this one little chunk of time that I'm covering in the first 3 issues.
So do you have a number of volumes that you envision telling the full story, or is it just, you said you have a storyline already plotted out, but is it like the full storyline, or just as much as you hope that you can get out if people go out and tell their comic book stores, please stock this, I would like to buy it?
That's an excellent question. I personally, I foresee telling Sarah's story as far as periodically going throughout time in 3 story arcs, kind of a trilogy. So we'll have this first decade in the first volume, and then the second volume would center around the big earthquake that tore down a large portion of the house. And then the third volume would carry us through until Sarah's death. That is my ultimate goal and plan. And then beyond that, what I would love to do is kind of, and this isn't something that's been planned in any way, this is just more of a pipe dream, is like tales from the Winchester Mystery House, which would be short stories that jump around throughout the house's history, whether it be during the construction while Sarah was alive or afterwards, because there's an endless amount of story potential to continue to tap into. And that includes all the way up to modern day and the hauntings that people experience. So I feel like that is an entire element of this story that people don't get, the haunting that continued post Sarah. So I feel that there's so much more we can do if everyone is here for it.
I want to thank you so much for your time today. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to let our audience know that I didn't ask you?
You can keep up to date on everything that's happening with this comic book series. Probably on our Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram would be the easiest place. Source Point Press is the publisher, and you can find it just by searching Source Point Press on any of those 3 platforms. There is, we have an Ashcan subscription program every month where you can subscribe. And the next one that's going out is an Ashcan. It's a limited edition Ashcan of the first issue. So what you'll get is you'll get the first half of the first issue before everybody else. You'll get a big preview of it. And they're pretty collectible. A lot of people, they love to hold on to those. You'll get a cool sticker with it. It's the only way you can get it. And a little newsletter with a little bit of a write-up. So if anyone's ever been considering joining that program, if you do it now, you will get the Winchester one, which is pretty cool. If you wait too long and too late into August, you'll be signing up for the following month, so you'll miss out on it. Otherwise, the big thing is to keep your eyes peeled for a big announcement happening in August on Friday the 13th. It's going to be happening at the Winchester Mystery House itself, where we'll be unveiling another product that I'm so excited about. And if anyone knows about our sister companies, what else we do, you kind of have probably a better idea of what it might be than most. But I won't say anything beyond that.
Because I was about to say, what are your sister companies? So I can go look it up.
I'll tell you after.
Okay. But thank you again. I really appreciate your time today. And
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.